In this course, we will review a scenario with two service team members, Carlos and Dan, who work at an apartment community. They are having a conversation about receiving a service request to respond to an apartment with a water-damaged textured ceiling. And as we all know, the ceiling texture just might be asbestos-containing. Carlos and Dan discuss the situation as they decide what the best course of action is. Allow me to introduce Carlos and Dan. They are both service technicians at a local residential apartment community that was built in 1975. Let's see what they both have to say about recognizing asbestos materials. Carlos and Dan just received a service request to make repairs to a water-damaged textured ceiling from a roof leak within a single occupied apartment. Carlos and Dan both respond to a service call. They enter the apartment together.
Hey Dan, look at that. It looks like the water leak did a significant amount of damage to the ceiling texture in both the foyer and kitchen area.
I know. And look there in the corner. There seems to be lots of the ceiling texture is hanging and ready to fall, and debris is already all over the floor. Carlos, what do you think that ceiling texture is?
You know, Dan, I'm not sure I know what that is. Dan, do you remember our asbestos training from last week?
I sure do remember it. Do you think that damaged ceiling texture could contain asbestos?
Good question. I guess it could contain some asbestos. I'm really not sure.
And remember, the instructor told us in our training that you can't tell if something is asbestos just by looking at it.
Yep, I remember that. Okay, I don't think we should disturb any of the texture until we are absolutely sure that it's not asbestos containing.
I agree. We don't want to have asbestos fibers get into the air by disturbing any of the ceiling texture or debris on the floor. Asbestos doesn't make ordinary dust, and it can be very dangerous if you breathe it. Let's report this to our supervisor before we do anything more. I called our supervisor and she confirmed that we shouldn't do anything to disturb the damaged ceiling material. She's placing a call into a licensed asbestos inspector to take a bulk sample and have it analyzed at a lab.
Remember also our instructor telling us that we should always presume a building material is asbestos containing until we prove otherwise.
Yes, I do remember that. Okay, let's secure the apartment until the inspector arrives.
Well, Dan, I guess there isn't any more we can do for now until the inspector arrives. How about I let you buy me lunch while we wait?
Carlos, you're kidding me, right? You already owe me lunch from last week.
I don't remember it exactly that way, Dan. Well, all right, let's just go to lunch while we wait.
I want you to remember this key takeaway here. Carlos and Dan acknowledged the job was too big for them and needed to report it to their supervisor. In these cases, a licensed asbestos inspector should always be called to confirm. In the next lesson, you will learn about identifying asbestos through fiber analysis and asbestos survey reports.